She showed up at midnight. Her secret would change his life forever. The sound of breaking glass shattered the midnight silence. Emma Winters stood frozen on Daniel Parker's doorstep, rain-soaked and trembling, not from the cold, but from what she was about to confess. The powerful CEO who had made his life impossible for weeks was now at his mercy, about to reveal the devastating secret that had driven her ruthless behavior. What Daniel didn't know was that by morning, one of them would be forced to leave town forever. Daniel stared at his unexpected visitor, the woman he'd grown to resent yet couldn't stop thinking about. His son's medication was running out. His deadline was looming, and now she was here, the last person he expected to see. The truth that would unfold in the next few hours would challenge everything he thought he knew about Emma, about himself, and about the thin line between love and hate. "I need to come in," Emma said, her voice barely audible above the storm. "And after tonight, you'll never look at me the same way again." 3 weeks earlier, Daniel Parker hurried through the gleaming lobby of Winters Innovation, balancing a coffee tray in one hand and his portfolio in the other. At 42, he was starting over, a senior graphic designer with 15 years of experience, now reporting to a CEO 12 years his junior. The irony wasn't lost on him. "Dad, you forgot to sign my permission slip again," his 13-year-old son Ethan had reminded him that morning, sliding the crumpled paper across their cluttered breakfast table. "Sorry, buddy, big presentation today," Daniel had replied, scribbling his signature while simultaneously answering an email on his phone. Since losing his wife to cancer 2 years ago, he'd been performing a precarious balancing act, being both parents while rebuilding his career after his previous company downsized. Now, as he approached the conference room, he could see her through the glass walls. Emma Winters, 30, self-made millionaire, founder and CEO of the fastest-growing design firm in the city. Her long platinum blonde hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail that emphasized her sharp cheekbones and ice-blue eyes. She was gesturing emphatically to the executive team, her slender figure commanding attention in a tailored white suit. Daniel took a deep breath and entered. "Mr. Parker, how kind of you to join us," Emma said without looking up from her tablet. "We've been reviewing your preliminary concepts for the Archer campaign." "I brought coffee," he offered, setting down the tray. "What we need are results, not caffeine," she replied coolly. "Your designs lack the innovation we promised Archer. They're safe, predictable, boring." The room fell silent. Daniel felt heat rising to his face as he took his seat. "I need you to start over. Complete redesign, and I need it by next Friday." Next Friday. Daniel's stomach dropped. "That's Ethan's science fair. I've already requested that afternoon off." Emma's gaze finally met his unflinching. "Mr. Park, when you joined Winters Innovation, you agreed to certain expectations. We're in a competitive industry. Personal commitments are personal. My son is important, I'm sure, as is this client who pays your salary." She turned to the rest of the team. Meeting adjourned. As everyone filed out, Emma called after him, "Daniel, stay behind." When they were alone, she approached, standing close enough that he could smell her expensive perfume, something subtle and sophisticated. "I hired you because your portfolio showed promise, but I'm beginning to wonder if you can handle the demands of this position." "I can handle it," Daniel said, his jaw tight. "But my son needs me too." Something flickered across her face so briefly he almost missed it. Vulnerability, regret, whatever it was, vanished instantly. "Then prove it," she said. "Impress me with the redesign, and you can have your afternoon off. Fail, and we'll need to reconsider your role here." The next 2 weeks became a blur of late nights and early mornings. Daniel worked from home after Ethan went to bed, often until 30 a.m., then was up at 6 to make breakfast and get his son ready for school. The housekeeper he'd hired to help with Ethan after school reported that the boy was becoming withdrawn, spending more time in his room than usual. "He asked me if you were going to miss his science fair," Mrs. Gonzalez told him one evening as Daniel rushed in from work. "Like you missed his band concert?" Daniel winced. "I'm trying, Maria. This project, my boss. The Ice Queen." Mrs. Gonzalez nodded knowingly. Ethan mentioned her. "What did he say?" "That she must be very lonely to make other people work so hard they can't see their families." Daniel paused, struck by his son's insight. He'd never considered Emma might be lonely. In his mind, she was simply ruthless, brilliant, but cold, demanding perfection without understanding the human cost. The next day, Daniel arrived early to find Emma already in her office. Through the glass walls, he could see her staring out the window, her posture less rigid than usual, almost defeated. When she turned, he caught a glimpse of redness around her eyes before she quickly composed herself. He knocked lightly on her open door. "Everything okay, Mr. Parker?" She straightened immediately back to business. "I was just reviewing the Mendoza account." "I brought you coffee," he said, setting down a cup on her desk. "You mentioned once you like hazelnut." Surprise registered on her face. "You remembered that?" "I pay attention," he said simply. Their eyes met, and for a moment something passed between them. Recognition, perhaps. Two people seeing each other clearly for the first time. The moment broke when her phone rang. "I need to take this," she said, reaching for the receiver. Daniel nodded and turned to leave. Daniel, she called after him, thank you for the coffee. It was the first time she'd used his first name without it sounding like a reprimand. 3 days before the deadline, disaster struck. Daniel received a call from Ethan's school. His son had collapsed during gym class. By the time Daniel reached the hospital, Ethan was stable but pale against the white sheets. Stress-induced asthma attack, the doctor explained. Has Ethan been under unusual pressure lately? Daniel thought about the science fair, about his own absences, about Ethan's increasing quietness. Yes, he admitted. Things have been difficult. He needs rest and stability, the doctor advised. And frankly, Mr. Parker, you look like you could use the same. Daniel spent the night in the hospital chair beside Ethan's bed, his laptop open on his knees as he worked on the Archer designs. By morning, his back ached, his eyes burned, and he was no closer to the breakthrough Emma demanded. When his phone rang at 70 OM, he expected it to be the office. Instead, it was Emma herself. You're not coming in today, she stated rather than asked. Ethan's in the hospital. Asthma attack. A long pause followed. Is he all right? The genuine concern in her voice surprised him. He will be. They're releasing him this afternoon. Another pause. Take the day. Work from home tomorrow. But Daniel, I still need those designs by Friday. I know, he said, too exhausted to argue. Good, she hesitated. And Daniel, tell Ethan. Tell him I hope he feels better soon. Daniel stared at his phone after she hung up. It was the first personal thing Emma had ever said about his son. Thursday night, Daniel sat at his kitchen table surrounded by sketches, his eyes heavy with fatigue. Ethan had gone to bed hours ago, but not before placing his completed science project, a detailed model of sustainable urban planning, on the dining room table. Do you think it's good enough, Dad? He'd asked anxiously. Daniel had hugged him tight. It's brilliant. You're brilliant. Now looking at his son's work beside his own incomplete designs, Daniel felt the weight of his divided loyalties crushing him. He'd promised Ethan he wouldn't miss another important event. He'd promised Emma he'd deliver exceptional work. Something had to give. At 11:30 p.m. Daniel made his decision. He gathered his designs. Good work, but not the revolutionary concepts Emma expected, and sent them to her with a brief email. Emma, these are my completed designs for Archer. They're solid, professional, and will serve the client well. Tomorrow afternoon I'll be at my son's science fair. If that means I no longer have a place at Winter's Innovation, I understand, Daniel. He closed his laptop, feeling simultaneously terrified and relieved. Then he went to bed, expecting to be unemployed by morning. Instead, at exactly midnight, his doorbell rang. Daniel opened his front door to find Emma standing there, drenched from the sudden downpour, her usual composure nowhere to be seen. A crash of thunder made her jump, and in her startled movement, she knocked over a potted plant on his porch. The sound of breaking ceramic punctuated the tense moment. I need to come in, she said, her voice barely audible above the storm. And after tonight, you'll never look at me the same way again. Daniel stepped aside wordlessly, too shocked to do anything else. Emma Winters, the untouchable CEO, the woman who had been making his professional life hell for weeks, was standing in his living room, water dripping from her hair onto his worn carpet. I got your email, she said, hugging herself slightly. And you couldn't wait until morning to fire me? He asked, his tone more resigned than bitter. I'm not here to fire you. She looked around, taking in the modest home with its evidence of a single father's life. Ethan's backpack by the door. A collection of framed photos showing a younger Daniel with a smiling woman and a small boy. Toys and books organized in neat but clearly well-used piles. Then why are you here? Emma took a deep breath. Because I recognized myself in your email. The choice you're making and I made the wrong one once. Daniel's confusion must have shown on his face because she continued, her words coming faster now. My father was like you, talented, hard-working, devoted to his family. He worked for a CEO like me. When I was 12, I had a piano recital. I'd practiced for months. My father promised he'd be there, but his boss demanded he stay late for an emergency client meeting. Her voice cracked slightly. He missed my recital to keep his job. 3 weeks later, he died of a heart attack at his desk. The last conversation we ever had was me telling him I hated him for breaking his promise. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. Emma, I built my company from nothing, she continued, pacing now. I became the person my father worked for. I told myself I was demanding excellence, not sacrifices. But seeing your son's name on your calendar requests, watching you struggle to balance everything, it reminded me of him. And tonight, your email, choosing your son over your job. It was like he finally made the right choice through you. She stopped pacing and faced him directly. I've been punishing you for my father's choices. And I've been punishing everyone around me because I never got to forgive him. The vulnerability in her eyes stunned Daniel. This wasn't the Ice Queen CEO. This was simply Emma, a woman carrying a burden of grief and regret not so different from his own. Why tell me this now, tonight? Because I looked at your designs, Daniel. They're good, better than good. With a few adjustments, they'll be exactly what Archer needs. She stepped closer. I can help you finish them tonight. You can present them tomorrow morning and still make it to Ethan's science fair. Daniel studied her face, searching for the catch. Why would you do that? Because I don't want to be that person anymore. The one who forces impossible choices. Her voice softened. And because I think we both know there's something else happening here, between us. Something I've been trying very hard to ignore. The tension that had always existed between them suddenly transformed electric in a completely different way. Daniel became acutely aware of how close she was standing, of the way her wet clothes clung to her perfect figure, of how her usually immaculate hair fell in damp waves around her face, making her look younger, more approachable. I thought you hated me, he said quietly. I thought I did too. A small sad smile touched her lips. Turns out it's much more complicated than that. They worked through the night, side by side at his kitchen table. Emma's design instincts were impeccable, her feedback direct but constructive. Without the pressure of the office, without the power dynamic of boss and employee so prominently on display, they fell into an easy rhythm of collaboration. Your typography choices are interesting, she noted, leaning close to examine his screen. But, he prompted, aware of the subtle scent of her perfume, still detectable beneath the smell of rain. No, but they're unexpected. I like unexpected. She glanced at him, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Despite evidence to the contrary, you liking the unexpected? I'm shocked. He teased back, surprising himself with how natural it felt. She laughed, a genuine sound he'd never heard from her before. I deserve that. As the night progressed, their conversation drifted from design to more personal territories. Emma asked about Ethan, about Daniel's late wife, listening with genuine interest. In turn, she shared stories of building her company, of the loneliness of leadership. Do you ever regret it? Daniel asked as they took a coffee break around 3:00 a.m. The sacrifices you've made for success. Emma considered the question seriously. I regret not finding better balance, not making room for connection. Her eyes met his. What about you? Do you regret taking the job at my company? I did, he admitted. Until tonight, the air between them charged with unspoken possibility. Emma sat down her coffee cup, her fingers trembling slightly. Daniel, a small voice interrupted from the hallway. Dad. They both turned to see Ethan standing there in pajamas, looking confused at the sight of his father's boss in their kitchen in the middle of the night. Hey buddy, Daniel said gently. This is Ms. Winters from my work. We're just finishing a project. The Ice Queen, Ethan asked innocently, then immediately looked mortified. I mean, to Daniel's surprise, Emma laughed. Yes, the Ice Queen though. I'm trying to thaw a bit. She extended her hand formally to Ethan. It's nice to finally meet you. Your dad talks about you all the time. Ethan shook her hand, studying her curiously. Are you coming to my science fair tomorrow? Emma glanced at Daniel, then back to Ethan. I wasn't invited. You can come, Ethan said with a child's directness. Dad says, my sustainable city model is really good. I used recycled materials and everything. It sounds impressive. Emma said sincerely. I'd love to see it if your dad doesn't mind. Both Winters looked at Daniel, who felt something shift in his chest, the sensation of walls coming down, of possibilities opening up. I'd like that, he said softly. The Archer presentation the next morning was a resounding success. Daniel and Emma presented as a team, their complementary styles and shared vision impressing the clients. As they left the conference room, Emma pulled Daniel aside. Go, she said. The science fair. I'll handle the follow-up questions. Are you sure? Absolutely. She straightened his tie in a gesture that felt surprisingly intimate. I'll meet you there. Daniel hesitated. Emma, about last night. We'll talk later, she promised. Right now, your son needs you. Daniel arrived at the school with time to spare, finding Ethan nervously arranging his display. The boy's face lit up when he saw his father. You came. I promised, didn't I? Daniel hugged him tight, and I keep my promises. The science fair was a whirlwind of proud parents and excited children. Ethan's project received high praise from the judges, earning him second place overall. As the event wound down, Daniel felt a presence beside him and turned to find Emma there, looking somewhat out of place among the casual parents in her elegant business attire. You came too, he said, unable to keep the pleasure from his voice. I keep my promises too, she replied, then nodded toward Ethan. He's remarkable like his father. Before Daniel could respond, Ethan bounded over. Ms. Winter, did you see my medal? Second place. It's well deserved, Emma said warmly. Your urban planning concepts are more innovative than some professional architects I know. Ethan beamed at the praise. Dad said maybe we could get ice cream to celebrate. Do you want to come? Emma looked to Daniel, a question in her eyes. I'd love to, Emma replied, something soft and genuine in her smile. As they walked to the ice cream parlor, Ethan chattering excitedly between them. Daniel felt a strange sense of rightness. The three of them sat at a small table, Emma looking amusingly out of place in her designer suit among the families and teenagers. So Ethan asked between bites of chocolate fudge sundae, are you still gonna make my dad work all night? Ethan. Daniel warned gently. It's a fair question, Emma said, dabbing her lips with a napkin. No, Ethan. I think your dad and I have found a better way to work together. Good. Ethan nodded seriously because he was really tired all the time and sad. Emma's eyes met Daniel's across the table. I'm sorry for that, she said quietly. It's okay, Ethan shrugged with a child's easy forgiveness. You didn't know, Dad says. Sometimes people act mean because they're hurting inside. Daniel watched as Emma absorbed his son's words, her composed facade cracking just slightly. Your dad is very wise, she finally said. Over the following weeks, a transformation took place. Emma implemented new work-life balance policies at Winter's Innovation. Daniel received a promotion to creative director with a schedule that allowed him to be home for dinner with Ethan most nights. And Emma began to change in ways that surprised everyone. She smiled more, listened more. The Ice Queen nickname faded as employees discovered the passionate, brilliant woman beneath the frosty exterior. She and Daniel developed a professional partnership that brought out the best in both of them. Their collaborative projects won industry recognition, bringing new prestigious clients to the firm, but it was their personal relationship that evolved most dramatically. Coffee meetings to discuss projects became lunch dates that had nothing to do with work. Emma started showing up at Ethan's school events. Daniel found himself texting her about everyday moments that made him think of her. 1 month after that rainy midnight visit, Daniel invited Emma to dinner at his home. A proper dinner, not a late-night work session. Is this a date? She asked directly as he took her coat. Yes, he answered just as directly. Is that okay? Her smile was answer enough. Dinner was a family affair with Ethan proudly helping serve the pasta he'd helped prepare. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the kind of comfortable silences that come when people feel truly at ease with each other. After Ethan went to bed, Daniel and Emma sat on the porch swing, a light summer breeze stirring the night air. I never thought this would be possible, Emma admitted, her head resting lightly against his shoulder. What, dating an employee? Daniel teased. Being happy, she corrected softly. After my father died, I built walls around everything. Success was safe. Emotions were messy. People were unreliable. She turned to face him. Until you refused to choose between your work and your son, you showed me another way was possible. Daniel brushed a strand of hair from her face. We're both learning. I was hiding too, behind grief, behind being just a dad, afraid to let anyone new into our lives. And now, she asked, vulnerability clear in her question. Now I'm not afraid anymore, he said, leaning in to kiss her softly. When they pulled apart, Emma's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. That night I showed up at your door. I was ready to resign. I couldn't bear what I was becoming, what I was doing to you to others. I never expected this. Life's full of unexpected turns, Daniel said. Some of them lead exactly where you need to go. 6 months later, Emma stood nervously in Daniel's living room, watching as he and Ethan hung Christmas decorations. She'd practically moved in over the past few months, her sleek downtown apartment feeling increasingly empty compared to the warmth of their home. The star goes on top, right? She asked, holding the tree topper uncertainly. Family tradition, Daniel confirmed. And the newest family member gets to place it? Emma froze. Newest family member. Daniel took her hand, guiding her to the sofa where they sat together. Ethan perched on the arm, exchanging a knowing look with his father. Emma, Daniel began, his voice thick with emotion. When you showed up at our door that night, you changed everything. You helped me find balance between work and family. You showed me it was possible to love again after loss. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. We want you to be part of our family officially, he continued, not just as my wife, but as part of the team Ethan and I have built. We voted, Ethan added seriously. It was unanimous. Emma laughed through her tears as Daniel opened the box, revealing a vintage emerald ring. It was my grandmother's, he explained. A strong, brilliant woman just like you, Emma Winters, he said, taking her trembling hand. Will you marry us? She looked from Daniel to Ethan, seeing in both their faces the same hopeful love. Yes, she whispered. Yes to both of you. As Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, Emma realized how completely her life had transformed. The lonely, driven CEO who punished others for her own pain had found something she never thought possible. A family, forgiveness, and the courage to be vulnerable. Later that night, as Ethan slept and she lay in Daniel's arms, Emma whispered, That night I came to your door in the rain. Daniel murmured sleepily. I was so afraid you'd turn me away, that I'd ruined any chance of connection between us. Daniel pulled her closer. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is show up at someone's door at midnight and let them see who we really are. Even the broken parts, she asked. Especially those, he said, kissing her forehead. Those are the parts that let the light in. The wedding was small but joyful, held in the community garden Ethan had helped design as part of his school's environmental initiative. Emma wore a simple white dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. Daniel couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked toward him, Ethan proudly at her side to give her away. As they exchanged vows, Emma looked out at the gathered guests, her employees who had become friends, Daniel's family who had welcomed her warmly, even Mrs. Gonzalez beaming in the front row. When I was building my company, Emma said in her vows. I thought success meant never showing weakness, never admitting mistakes, never letting anyone close enough to hurt you. I was wrong. True success is having the courage to show up at someone's door at midnight, broken and afraid, and finding they welcome you anyway. She squeezed Daniel's hands. You and Ethan taught me that family isn't just something you're born into. It's something you build together, one brave choice at a time. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, applause erupted around them. Ethan rushed forward to embrace them both, completing their circle. That night at the reception, Emma found a moment alone with her new stepson. Thank you, she said simply. For what? Ethan asked. For sharing your dad with me, for giving me a second chance when I was the Ice Queen. Ethan grinned. Dad says everyone deserves a second chance. Besides, you make him happy, and you're not so scary once people get to know you. Emma laughed, ruffling his hair affectionately. I'll take that as a compliment. Later, as she and Daniel shared their first dance, she whispered, I never thought I'd have this. Have what? He asked, spinning her gently. A family love. The messy, complicated, wonderful life I was too afraid to reach for. Daniel pulled her closer. Sometimes the things we're most afraid of turn out to be exactly what we need. Like showing up at someone's door at midnight, she teased. Like showing up, he agreed. And like letting someone in. As they danced under the stars, surrounded by the people who had become their extended family, Emma realized that the night that had changed everything wasn't just about her courage to show up. It was about Daniel's willingness to open the door. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is let down our walls and allow ourselves to be seen, truly seen by another person. In that vulnerable space, we find not weakness, but our greatest strength, the capacity to love and be loved in return. If you enjoyed this story of courage, vulnerability, and finding love in unexpected places, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming content that reminds us of the power of second chances and the beauty of building a family. Whether by birth or by choice, we'd love to know what country are you watching from. Share in the comments below and join our community of viewers who believe in the transformative power of love and forgiveness. Sometimes opening the door is how we find love, family, and second chances.